My name is Tribe, and welcome to Father of the Nation, an organization dedicated to the promotion and advancement of family unity. This is our first episode. Thank you for tuning in. I'm pretty sure we're going to be looking back years from now, and like most YouTube creators, laugh at their first episode and can't believe how far they come. So this is our inaugural episode, so let's get busy. In this inaugural episode, we're going to be talking about looking for happiness in the wrong places. Unfortunately, too many people know of that all too well. I don't want to get messy, but trust me, unfortunately, too many people know all too well what that means. Why is happiness hard to find in modern times? That could be a TED Talk, a seminar, multiple sermons. There's a whole host of reasons. But let's take it back a little bit. Let's take it back to 2020 during the pandemic. What we learned so much about the pandemic, other than the fact that coronavirus was something that kind of took the world by storm, it was one of the first times in our lives where we were confined to our home, where we didn't have the freedom of movement that we're used to here in the United States and in many other parts of the world. And with that lack of movement, we really began to see how important having someone around us who cares about us matters. Okay, there was countless news stories about people suffering from depression, people, suffering from bouts of loneliness, which led to depression, and some people being consumed by it so much decided to take their lives. So we understand that it wasn't just a pandemic that taught us that family was important and that taught us that having someone in our lives who cares about us is important. It was merely just a wake-up call for something that already existed. As a nation, we need to focus on family. Without focusing on family, that's just a tip of the iceberg of what could happen to us if we don't focus on family. The loneliness, the depression, ultimately some people choosing to end their lives. The pandemic was merely an incubator for how important we should treat our family and how important we should treat the unity of family and the organization of family and the bringing together of family in our lives. Because what a lot of us tend to do is we tend to dismiss or discount the importance of finding someone and going through the natural steps to form family. Unfortunately, when I got married, there wasn't a lot of people that was in my age range who looked like me, or just in my age range period. Really, let me just keep it there. Who really looked at me like I was crazy? Man, you were in your prime. What are you doing getting married? I was kind of looked at as an oddball, and it's unfortunate that our culture doesn't embrace the unity of marriage and the sanctity of marriage the way that it should. And clearly, our society is suffering for it in a multitude of ways that I'll go through in upcoming episodes. One of the things that I really wanted to touch on that is really impacting our society in a negative way, that is really an enemy of family unity, is the promotion of hyper individualism. What is hyper individualism? Hyper individualism is a way of living your life where you become the center of the universe. Now, on some level, you should be the center of the universe, right? You should care about what happens to you, how you're taking care of yourself, your hopes, your dreams, aspirations, yada, yada, yada. But hyper individualism and the prefix that's on individualism, which is hyper, means that you are so focused on yourself that you don't really have room to consider anybody else in a truly meaningful way. So hyper-individualism is also impacting the amount of successful relationships that do exist in our nation. You have people who are so focused on themselves that it's just really hard for them to consider somebody else's feelings, somebody else's time. trying to come together to have a successful relationship involves a certain amount of selflessness. And if you're hyper individualistic, selflessness is not necessarily your forte. And unfortunately, the media as well has a big role to play in it. You know, we really need strong leadership and strong role models, not only from those at the top, our politicians, our local officials. We need leadership in the households of America. We need more adults, particularly those who have children, to model, research, and model how to not only conduct family more successfully and more efficiently, but also just how to be decent with one another. I think part of the reason why we have so many issues in our society is because we're talking at people and not necessarily to people, right? I think we're in this hypersensitive state as well, where everybody's offended by everything, or everybody should be offended by everything. And, you know, some people are more interested in disagreeing with someone rather than listening to what they have to say. And if it does make sense, it may even potentially change their opinion. And there's nothing wrong with changing your opinion based on the right information from the right source. So what that leads me to now is, you know, the media has an agenda. We do live in a capitalistic society. So unfortunately, a lot of programming goes through the media. If you want the population to do something, all you have to do is keep showing it to them, show it to them in many different ways. You know, there's a reason why psychology and marketing go hand in hand. And unfortunately, if I can promote certain lifestyles to you, hyper individualistic lifestyles to you, the consequence is beneficial for them, but not necessarily beneficial for you in your personal life on some level. What do I mean by that? If I'm telling you to focus solely on yourself, your dreams, what you want to do, where you want to go, the kind of person you should be with. So what I'm doing is I'm helping to create an individual that is really great at taking care of themselves, but not necessarily great at helping to take care of anyone else. If you're a master at taking care of yourself, but you do not become the master of being selfless and being able to take care of others, where does that leave room for you to even form a relationship, a foundation for a relationship that could even lead to as something as special as marriage? There's really not any room left. So understand that when things are happening, when you see certain trends in society and you see certain people and you see people acting a certain way, or you see, it seems like the attitude of the people is shifting a lot in regards to a certain topic. And, you know, what I focus on is family. It's because there is a financial component. If everybody's living in, if not everybody, but if a good percentage of the population is hyper focused on themselves, then you are having to furnish your own apartment. You are buying your own vehicle, because there are some places, depending on where you live in the country, where having one car with a couple is sufficient enough, and you know, you don't necessarily need two cars. In some parts of the country, you don't need a car at all. So you're furnishing your own place. You're having your own car. You are incurring all the costs of getting your own place, which involve the security deposit, you know, the deposit. You're buying paint, you're buying pictures, you're buying separate groceries. All these things stimulate the economy. The economists don't necessarily talk about it, but people who are paying attention to people who form family and how many people are coming together to build family, which is usually the blueprint to financial success, if both people are on the same page and headed towards the right trajectory. Now what you're seeing is many people are trying to be successful by hyper individuality. Now, there are a decent amount of people who do become individually successful, but the vast majority do not, because the blueprint has always been, you come together with someone 2 is always greater than 1 in mathematics. And the same thing applies in life. The one variable is making sure that you get someone who is aligned and who is coachable to be aligned with the mission and the vision that you guys set forth for your life. With that being said, the real truth of the matter is I couldn't imagine what my life would look like without my family. Family adds a dimension, a purpose, a fullness in your life. You speak to any happily married person, they'll tell you the same. They will absolutely tell you some version of the same. Our country is not slipping out of its position due to necessarily finances. It's due to the breakdown of communities across this country. When you see crime rates going up, most people want to attribute crime rates simply to income disparities and poverty. No, that's not necessarily the whole story. The real story is it's a breakdown of the family unit. It's a breakdown of family unity. It's a breakdown of family values. It's a breakdown of a standard that was not created in said family for everybody to follow by. A community is only as strong as its families. So if we have more and more fragmented families, more and more families that are broken down, how do we expect anything to get better in this nation? But it all starts with us and how we conduct ourselves in our family and how we express and live out the ideas of what family should be. Now, I completely understand. Some of us represent the first generation of the family that may have went to college, that may have, been able to make 6 figures, been able to move out of a particular neighborhood, have been able, maybe the first one of in many generations to, be present for their children. I understand all that. None of that is to really be glossed over. But with that said, now it's time to really understand and align ourselves with people and organizations like Father the Nation to get a real better understanding of what are the things I can do to keep my family together. What are the things I can do what are the things that I can do to express, to extend, to grow, to elevate our family in a multitude of ways? Because I'll tell you this, because this is something I'm going to talk about a lot more in the future. But focusing on generational wealth, that term generational wealth has been said so much, it's been watered down so much that, really I kind of don't even like using the term. Because talking to me about generational wealth when the generation can't stand each other, the generation is fragmented, to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's putting the chicken before the egg, putting the cart before the horse. It doesn't make sense. We really need to focus on our family unit. If I have a family business and the family unit is not on the same page, we don't have family values to adhere by. We don't have a family hierarchy to adhere by. We don't have family traditions to adhere by. Then how can I expect cohesion and understanding for something as serious as a business, for something as serious as an inheritance? It's not, 1 + 1 has to equal 2 somewhere. So please, with this generational wealth talk, it's not that nothing is necessarily wrong with it, but I feel like we're missing a step, because it's sexy to talk about money. But let's be honest, for the money to have the impact it's supposed to have, and for the money to grow the way it's supposed to grow, and for the money to grow truly generationally, then that means that we need more than 1 person or 2 people or 3 people who can come together. We need a family. We need a family to have an understanding of how we do things, why we do things. And that's how generational wealth is going to be able to be passed down. Just saying the term generational wealth and making a few dollars here and there, even a whole, significantly more dollars, generational wealth may last for maybe one generation. So all of that was for what then? Without family unity, you really don't have anything. I appreciate you all for hanging in there with me, but I want you guys to know that all of this is not for nothing. We are developing an ebook that is going to be accompanied with a workbook, Cracking the Family Code. How can we get our families more united? How can we add a fresh perspective to family in modern times? That's really important. And I think for any of us who are parents who are scared about the impacts of social media on our children, who they're hanging around, them buying into all the different trends, even if they don't make sense, or even if they, make them, could necessarily put them in trouble, kill them, multitude of things that can negatively affect them. I think I think this is important for you to align yourself with, because our goal is to and will be to create a community of parents and how to build the leadership qualities inside of them, or just to expand the leadership qualities that they currently do have, so that they can do a better job at raising leaders. Just think about it as just another tool in your belt. Like, subscribe, comment, follow Father of the Nation on YouTube, TikTok, and IG. And remember, family unity is the real strength of a nation. I'm Tribe. Peace.